of men and women of doubtful reputation were hanging around Jesus. They were listening intently. The Pharisees and the scholars were not pleased at all. They growled. He takes in sinners and eats meals with them, treating them like old friends. So their grumbling triggered this story. Suppose one of you had 100 sheep and lost one of them. Wouldn't you leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one lost until you found it? When found, you can be sure you would put it across your shoulders, rejoicing. And when you got home, called your friends and neighbors saying, "Celebrate with me! I found my lost sheep." Count on it. There's more joy in heaven over one sinner's rescued life than over 99 good people in no need of rescue. Imagine this, he says. A woman who has 10 coins and loses one. Won't she light a lamp and scour the house, looking in every nook and cranny until she finds it? And when she finds it, you can be sure she calls her friends and neighbors. "Celebrate with me! I found my lost coin." Count on it. That's the kind of party God's angels throw every time one lost soul returns to God. This is the gospel of the Lord. Well, I have a confession to make. I don't like losing things. Does anybody else lose things and it makes you frustrated or angry? This morning, I was late for church because it's Vision Team's meeting day, and I decided to make something and bring it with me for lunch. And I couldn't find the lid to my crock pot. I went searching. I know my husband got it found. I know he put it somewhere. Eventually, I did find it. It's the last place I looked. But of course, right? Why else would you continue looking once you find it? And I was pretty joy-filled that I found it. And then I think, wow, if all of life was so simple. But that's part of what Jesus is telling us today, is that when we feel frustrated or angry or stupid or disoriented or a loss of control or maybe panic or any of those other feelings associated when we lose something or perhaps lost ourselves. I remember growing up, and anytime I would lose something, you see, it's kind of been a habit, I guess. My brother would come up to me and do that. He'd go, "Loser!" And so it felt like I had a brand. And that's one of the important pieces I think about our lesson today, is that Jesus really makes a distinction for the people that are listening, and for all of the religious ones in particular, which possibly include all of us. He wants us to consider some things and ask better questions about ourselves and the world around us. So let me describe what I mean. Loser is damnation incarnate. It's like the worst thing you could possibly be. A nobody, cursed, without a chance of a future. Because the label itself is a curse. It's like a brand on the soul. But now let's look at what Jesus does and use a different word. Lost. Lost has hope embedded in the peril. For found is also inherent in the possibility of there. Lost has a prayer and a chant, and it bends your spirit in fervent devotion that there's a chance to step on the road to salvation. There's a big difference between loser and being lost. And Jesus today really lifts that up for us. I mean, think about it. The notion of loser has been very prominent in our media and public rhetoric this year. Winners and losers are certainly the name of the game in the election cycle. And also in the name of the game in the Olympics, too. Pumping yourself up, psyching yourself out to be a winner is the spiritual side of athletic training. It's also what coaches do when they give pre-game pep talks about winning. In the Olympics, the adoring fans would listen to reporters ask the victors how they won and the losers why they lost. Well, today in our reading, the religious ones were grumbling and really annoyed with Jesus for hanging out with, eating with, talking to those they deemed losers. But Jesus wanted them to really hear the difference. That these people, who the Pharisees and religious ones took on as losers, he confronts them and he says that they are not. And he makes that simple shift from understanding of loser to lost. He's helping listeners reframe the question and the experience. Because did you notice that how he addresses them is with the two stories? The objects in there, the sheep and the coins, they're not sinners at all. They're sheep and coin. Clearly the focus is not on the sinfulness, but on the lostness. So the question becomes for us, the religious ones, those following Jesus, those listening perhaps to Jesus. When we see people outside the religious community, do we see sinners? Or do we see lost ones? And I think that's an important distinction for us. I think it's especially important today. Today is the 15th anniversary of 9/11. That terrible day when the two planes crashed into the World Trade Center, bringing it to the ground. Many, many people lost their lives. When another plane crashed into the Pentagon, and another fell to the ground in Pennsylvania, terrorists brought down by citizens like you and me. America has mourned its dead, honored them, and rebuilt what was destroyed. But ask yourselves, is there still not a spirit among us that wants to turn Arabs and Muslims into eternal losers because of that day? Just a few years ago, for example, a great protest around the existing mosque there near the Ground Zero. They wanted to build a mosque as a prayer and study center where all religions could meet. A sign to the world that Islam is a religion of peace. And most New Yorkers were fine with the project, but there were some groups and some media that really went into high gear, and it became a fear tactic, and that became very effective. And after 2 years of struggle, the mosque owners decided instead to build a luxury condo on the site instead of a center for peace. I don't know about you, but as a person who works to and try to follow Jesus, this seemed like another nail in the crucifixion. Another victory for the winners over the endangered. Defining moment of winners over losers. A moment that saw lost as losers. And it's a sad moment that goes against that little plaque that sits by Lady Liberty in the New York Harbor that says, "Give me your tired, your hungry, your cuddled masses, yearning to be free." I try to put that into perspective of the message Jesus brings us today about a coin and a sheep, a lamb. The coin, think about it. Think about as a child, or even today, I see a penny and I'm excited to pick it up. As a child, maybe you were too if your parents let you keep it. That's kind of a bittersweet process, isn't it? Because for you to find money or something, it means somebody originally lost it. But the point is that even in the sense of lostness, we can see that this story is really about the seeker. It's about the woman who puts aside everything to go and look for that coin. Or the shepherd who puts aside the rest of the flock, the greater percentage of the flock, to go look for the one. The Bible reminds us that we are all lost. And it tells us, when it uses that word, that it means we're perishing, we're being destroyed, not just wandering about aimlessly. The Bible says we are dangerously like sheep who have gone astray, each turned to his own way. And sinners who don't come to grips with what our sin does to our relationship with God is that we'll never find our way back to him on our own. The point of our lesson today is to remind us all of our lostness. To remind us of this very sense that we don't come to ourselves, find ourselves. But it is the great shepherd who seeks and finds us. The great shepherd who leaves everything, does everything possible to bring back the lost ones. The lost ones are us. The lost ones are those who have a sense of not knowing where we are in place and time, even though we know right where we sit. We don't know our connectedness to those next to us, those down the road from us, those across the world from us. We've kind of lost that sense of being a community, of being God's people wherever we are. Hopefully in listening to this text this morning that you are able to admit your own lostness and experience the joy of being found. Those that were really bugged, the religious folk and the Pharisees of Jesus' day, who were listening as he told these stories, in their minds they weren't lost. It was the bad people who were. In fact, they were the ones that claimed they could help the lost ones find their way. And so when Jesus came saying that he was the way, it really disturbed them. But Jesus promised even to them that they are loved, like our opening song. That no matter how many pieces your life is shattered into, no matter how lost you feel, God is welcoming you. God is calling you. God is searching for you right now. My favorite part of the 23rd Psalm, which was not part of our readings today, is that very end, where you might know it as, "And goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." The translation in Hebrew reads, "And goodness and mercy shall pursue me all the days of my life." They're going to get you no matter what. That's the sense that God says says to us today in this text. God loves us so much. No matter what we do in our lives, no matter how lost we are or feel, God is going to find us. And the better news is God is going to get us and reclaim us and love us. So let's change loser perhaps into lost, but then remember that we are loved. Amen.